What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for stopping by. Today I'm going to show you guys how to do an oil change on a 2012 Dodge Ram with a 5.7 liter Hemi engine, and I know the same will apply to any other Dodge or Chrysler products with a 5.7 liter engine as well. So we're going to go ahead and show you step by step on how that's done, and I hope you learned something today. You guys want to start by letting it run for a little bit, let the oil get up to temperature, and it just drains better and easier as well. So thankfully it's like 35 degrees today where I'm from, Celsius, and it didn't take much to get her up to temp. So we're going to set this thing up on the hoist and get the oil draining. Now, if you don't have a hoist, that's fine. Use a suitable floor jack with a couple of jack stands, and that'll be sufficient enough to do the job. So let's get this thing up in the air. So to start, you're going to get a suitable drain bucket and a 13mm socket on a ratchet or a wrench, whatever works. Crack the drain plug. Let the oil fall out of that. Next, you're going to want to locate your oil filter. Your oil filter on this truck sits just above the steering rack. It's not too bad to get to. Kind of makes a bit of a mess while it's draining, but got a whole lot of options on that one. While the oil is draining, I like to do things like shake the front end, make sure my ball joints and tie rods are good. While I'm waiting, and do a visual on everything. You may see, CV axle boots, suspension. Just do a visual on everything. Make sure you don't have any other oil leaks while you're under here. And while that oil is draining, you can get your filter ready to drain here, which it's kind of a tough one to do with the smaller drain bucket because it's in a different location. So I usually just like to do my engine oil first, let that go, put the plug back in it, and then do the filter. The way that the filter sits is cartridge style down from the bottom, so I don't feel like you'd be losing any oil draining back into the oil pan by doing it this way, but it's just the way I've always done it. Guys, now that you have your oil mostly drained, it's just a little trickle. You can get another drain bucket just to capture stuff to that if you'd like. That's what I got going on right now. And then we're going to pop this filter off. So I got myself a filter strap just to make my life easier. You can do it by hand, but I have the tool, so I'm going to use it. You can go in through the front over here over the cross member. Alright, just get your strap on there and just crack that filter loose. Once it's loose, you don't need this anymore. And you can just go by hand here, spin it off. Now, what I do is I like to crack it loose just enough so that the oil begins to drain. So it's not a big gushing oil flow once you pop the filter right off. So now I'm just going to let this oil filter drain for a minute or so until it makes it easier for me to spin it off and finagle it out of the way, and I'll show you how to do that as well. Okay, now that that's drained enough for me to handle without making a complete mess of everything, you can go ahead and finish popping this filter off. Be prepared, there will be some oil that will come off of it when you tip it upside down. Just be aware of that. I don't know if you can see the filter up there or not, but my hands are covered in oil, so I'm not about to pick up the phone. Again, now, due to its situation, where it's situated on the engine rather, it's going to be, where the oil drain is going to be on your steering rack, it's going to be on your cross member, it's going to be on your front subframe here, front cross member here as well. You can go ahead now and put that drain plug back in and tighten it back up. Again, that's a 13mm socket or wrench. Now I'm sure there's a torque spec on it if you guys were to look it up, but I might source that out and put down in the comments for those who like to torque everything. But personally, I've torqued maybe 3,000 of these by hand. Who knows? Maybe less, maybe more. I don't know. And I get a pretty good feel for them. Just don't scrape it. Okay, so now that's tight. My oil filter's fully drained. I'm gonna get my oil filter. I'm gonna put that on. All right, so now you got the filter in hand. All you need to do is put a little bit of oil on the seal. It just helps next time when you're trying to take it off. So go ahead, thread it on. I only put these on hand tight, nice and snug by hand. There's no need to crank these, but give it a good seat. You don't need the clamp to tighten this one up, or else you'll have a lot of fun getting it off again. Okay, now we have our drain plug back in, our oil filter back on. I'm just gonna get a little bit of brake cleaner, clean off where the oil met the steering rack and the cross member, and then we'll lower the bit from that. And the reason I do that is just so I don't have a mess on my shop floor as it goes out the door. Alright, now that everything's out of the way, let's go ahead, drop the vehicle, and put some oil in it. Okay guys, now we're underneath our hood here. We're going to take off our oil fill cap and get our oil ready to pour in. You're going to need a suitable funnel unless you're a magician at pouring fluids, which I don't like to take my chances and make a mess. So, oil that this truck takes on these engines with the shutdown cylinders is a 520. I'm running a synthetic. I believe it takes minimum of 520 semi-synthetic, but I'm running a synthetic here today. The oil that we're using here today for this truck is a Shell Rotella 520 synthetic. I really like Rotella, but I'm not going to get into why or why not. But you're going to need 7 liters. You're going to need 7 liters of oil for this truck, or 7.5, something like that. So I've got two jugs of 5 liters worth. So I have 10 liters here, ample enough to do this oil change and some for the next one as well. So go ahead, begin pouring the oil in. Alright, so now we've put about maybe 6.5, 7 liters in. I'm going to go ahead and check the oil level right now, just to see how we're doing before we overfill it and have to go back to draining. So you pull your dipstick, you wipe it, put it back in, take a reading. Here we're just at the top of the hash. I don't know if you're able to see that or not on camera. But we're gonna need to add a little bit more to make the room up when we fire up the engine and some oil ends up in the oil filter. Now, some people like to put a little bit of oil in the oil filter. That's usually better on vehicles that have a massive oil filter, because that would take a lot longer of a time to fill. Therefore, the engine would be starving of oil for that duration of time. But given how small this oil filter is, I don't think it's necessary. So we're going to go ahead and just give it a little bit more than it needs. Not a whole lot. That should be more than enough. And then we're going to fire it up and recheck it. Don't forget to put your oil cap on, else you might have a little bit of mess. Alright guys, so now we let it run for maybe 5-10 seconds. More like 10 seconds, realistically speaking, is better. I'll let the oil cycle through the engine and circulate, let the oil pump do its thing. Now we're gonna give it about maybe 10, 15 seconds for the oil to sit back in the oil pan, and we can take a proper oil reading. So again, wipe your dipstick. Okay guys, so we need to add a little bit more oil here. We're about the middle of the hash. I like to put it right at the top of the safe zone. That means it's in the absolute perfect spot. So now that you've already ran the truck, you don't need to go ahead and run it again in order to check the oil, because there's oil in the filter already and it's already circulated. So this is just a true reading of what the oil level is after you top back up again. So hopefully the last time. And we are right on the money. I'm not sure if you can see that right there, but that's where you want your oil level to be. All right. So that pretty much wraps it up. But you're gonna want to deal with your oil light. In order to deal with that light on your dash, I've already done it, and my hands are oily, so I'm not touching the camera. But basically, you turn the key in the on position, and you pump the gas pedal 3 times within 5 seconds, all the way down, up, down, up, down, up, and turn the key back off, turn it on. I like to do it again just to make sure it's all good, and then that warning light should go off. So, all right, so that's how you take care of an oil change on a 2012 Dodge Ram with a 5.7 liter Hemi engine. But anything with a 5.7 liter Hemi engine should be about the same. You might have a little bit more obstacles in the way if it's in a car, but on a Dodge Ram, they'll all be pretty much about the same. Even the 2500s should be about the same, the gasoline engines. Oil of choice, that's kind of preference on what you guys want to use, but again, I ran with the 520 synthetic, that's what it calls for, and about 7.5, 8 liters it takes. Your filter you can get from any parts supplier local to you, and have about 10 liters handy. Like I say, just in case, you never know, you can make a mistake, you could add too much, you could spill some. So have two full-size jugs on hand, and you're good for an oil change. I hope you learned something. I hope you liked the video. Stay tuned for the next one. Thanks.